When you are so sensitive, and that's really what it is, we need children who are sensitive to their environment, because if we as adults had been as sensitive as they are, we would not be destroying our planet, because we would have the empathic sensitivity for what's going on with Mother Earth and what's going on with other people and what's going on with the animals on this planet. And so they're this really hopeful, inspiring, exciting generation.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm on Bowen Island in British Columbia, and I am with a woman who's been doing work with spirit and work for over 20 years. Ellen Hayakawa, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, among other things, you've written a book called The Inspired Organization, Spirituality and Energy at Work, an area that you've actually pioneered for a lot of years. But I noticed at the beginning of this, the heart of it, which I think is really juicy, is the work you're doing with individuals, with people, to find why they're here at this point. What can they contribute? What work do they really want to do? And so I'd like to focus on that, because I think a lot of our viewers know we're in tough times. And maybe asking the question, what can I do? What can I give? So tell us how you do that.
Well, the current work system that we have is one where people go to jobs. And those jobs provide often financial security and other kinds of things. But, you know, really, work is the creative expression of the spirit and heart and soul. And we each have a different and unique spirit. I think we'd all agree that we're made up of mind, body, emotions, and spirit. And spirit is really what makes us unique, where we have our creative gifts and talents. You know, mine are different than yours, different than your viewers. And each of us was really born to do something unique on this planet and give our gifts. And that all really comes from the heart and soul and spirit. And so without those in work, we cannot really feel satisfied or fulfilled or truly rewarded on the emotional or spiritual or soul or heart level. So when we do a job that we're just doing because, you know, we might have an interest in it, but if it's not really coming from our passion, from our really innate gifts and talents, you know, from which we develop our skills and abilities, then it's never going to be satisfying.
And you know that firsthand.
I know it firsthand because I've always been passionate about the earth, and originally I was a wildlife biologist in the Canadian federal government, and that definitely was a passion for a while. And then I became really depressed because I just had that feeling that so many people have. I'm not doing what I came here to the planet to do.
And I know that feeling. I mean, for many, many years I was doing graphic design on the board, and I liked it, and some of it was really creative, but there was always this discontent, sort of like, this is not it, even though I liked many of the clients and the work. And I would imagine a lot of people feel that. But it's the gap between this job, this work, what kind of help can you give people, and how do you find your way to find that and then bring it to form?
Well, I talk about the 4 pillars of sacred work, or divinely inspired work, and that's what I would call work of the spirit. So
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. You define spirit and spirituality a little different than some of us may picture that. I think some people may think it's about religion. Can you just give us, what do you mean by spirit?
Right.
It's a toughie.
Yeah, it is a tough question because it's a really big question.
Right.
And what I say is every person's definition of spirit and spirituality is the correct definition for them. And if you ask me about what my definition would be, then I would say spirituality is the process of questioning and seeking answers in the search for truth about life, wherever we are.
The process.
The process.
So it's not a somebody out there.
It's
seeking.
It's seeking. It's questioning. And one of those places that we really question is, what am I here to do?
Yeah. Carry on. Thank you for letting me interrupt you about the sacred pillars, because I didn't want somebody to say, oh, this is,
Right.
Carry on. The
Right.
4 sacred pillars.
Yeah. So really, spirituality embraces all cultures, all religions, space and time. I'll say that just so that we know that it's inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's freeing rather than limiting. So the 4 pillars really are mission, purpose, vision, and values. So if a person knows those for themselves, what are the values that I hold to be important? And why is that important? Because if you know your values, then you will work with those values. You'll also attract people who have similar or complementary values. So if you're working on a team, you want to have people around you who have complementary values, who are going to hold dear those things that you hold dear, because that's going to make for the greatest harmony in working.
Give us an idea, give us some examples. What are some values that people can have?
Love, trust, respect, honesty, integrity. I would call them, your own inner values. And then after values, purpose. And so people define purpose in a different way. What's your life purpose is often a question. Yeah. What's my life purpose? And I actually, because I found some of those to be confusing, because sometimes people say life purpose, but to me they really mean what is their vision. I define life purpose as something that is constant throughout your entire life. So if you really think about it, you were actually doing it when you were a child. You're doing it right now. You'll continue to do it. It's the place we actually fulfill our life purpose in our lifetime through the visions that we have. So although our visions may change, our life purpose doesn't. And so I'll give you an example of life purpose, So for somebody, they might have been, as a child in their family, they were always bringing joy. And so their life purpose is to explore what joy is and to express that in their lives and to help other people express joy in their lives. And they'll explore different facets of doing that through the various visions that they have. But the theme is always constant, always the same.
So tell us yours. Your life purpose.
My life purpose is to know and to understand myself and to know and to understand spirit.
So that makes sense. Whether you're doing it with a work or a conference or individuals, there you are.
Yes, and I did it when I was a child. I was always interested in the spiritual world, and I had spiritual experiences. And in many ways, I feel like I started out my life not knowing all the aspects of myself, and through the exploration of my life and the different lessons that I've learned and the different visions that I've had, that's how I'm getting to know and to love and to understand myself, and to know and to love, understand spirit and other people.
I was going to say, I can imagine that's true for a lot of people at some deep level. In the early 80s, I formulated, now I don't know whether purpose for me, which was to be an artist expresser of spirit. Okay, and I would never have imagined that. I was doing visual art. I never would have imagined this form of it, but this is a form of it.
Yes.
And it's like, what I got was that having that little phrase was a kind of touchstone for me. It was kind of grounding. I could go look back at it and validate what I'd learned or who I'd met and it gave me some guidance. And I would expect that's true of people finding that for themselves.
Absolutely. I call it, the GPS, really. It's the compass. through, and the word that you used is exactly the word that I use as well, a touchstone for someone. And I know that when I work with people, when they finally are able to say their life purpose in one sentence, many people cry. It's a very emotional, I'm actually, having an emotional experience for all these people who have been searching for something. And I say it's written in the DNA of your cells. And so it really is an inner journey, but when it comes out and you can articulate and verbalize it, it's powerful.
Yes. I was there. It was like knowing your true name. It's like your home, in a way. It's like, didn't know you were away from home, except that you just arrived, and there you are, and things like clicks into place.
Yes, and that's what I've also heard. It's like coming home. Yeah, I hear that time and time again from clients. It's like coming home. So the third pillar, the vision piece, is so you have to know your vision, because your vision comes from your passions, and it comes from your bringing together your creative gifts and talents and being able to express them. And through your vision, you learn more about gifts and talents that you don't know that you had. So each vision that you have builds on something else. At one point you were an artist in spirit. It was a physical way of doing it. I know you said you were in graphic design and now you're doing this. And so everything that you experience in one of your visions, because the vision changes over time, you bring what you've learned with you to the next vision. So, for example, in my case, I had a dream. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. I became a wildlife biologist. And then I had a vision for bringing the word spirit and spirituality into the consciousness of people in mainstream workplaces. But my background as a scientist helped me to bring these words to engineers and to scientists. And so I was able to create a bridge between the spiritual world and the scientific world, the world of work, the world of work the way it is, and the world of work where we're going. And then I had a vision for a global peace summit. And so then that vision happened. But through it all, again, I'm learning, I'm fulfilling my life purpose. And so that knowing your vision is important, because if you don't know your own vision, then we often just nature or the universe, spirit abhors a vacuum. and you will be presented with opportunities which you may say, oh yeah, I'll go and do that, and then I'll go and do that. But it never quite really resonates or fulfills you, because if it's not clearly your own vision, it's just something else that happens to come along.
It may be something that helps spur you to go ask that question. It's like it's mostly right, but not quite. It may help the discovery.
Absolutely,
process.
Absolutely. Knowing what we don't want to do, knowing what we don't like, that too is a process. And I spent a lot of years doing that, and so have my clients. And it's then finally you can take those pieces. I love doing this. I had, I had peak moments when I was speaking, when I was doing this, when I write. How do I put all of that together? My passion is in a certain subject area. I love to read about this. I love to see movies,
do it with
do it with your hands, whatever it is, look after people, animals. And it's by bringing all of those elements together that you formulate your vision. And then the fourth pillar, which is the mission, is where you work with many, many other people who have the same mission. So they have different visions. They'll have complementary visions, but their overall mission will be exactly the same as your mission. So your mission could be, in my case, my mission is global peace on this planet in my lifetime. And there are millions, hopefully billions of people with that same vision, doing very different kinds of things, but really we're all working on the same thing, just various pieces of it. And that's how it's important that we find each other and know, oh yes, that person's doing that and that person's doing, but here's their vision and here's how my vision fits with their vision and how we can synergize in order to accomplish our greater mission. And so that mission could even be at the end of global hunger, or, you know, we want sustainable agriculture for this planet. So somebody might be doing permaculture or biodynamic gardening, you know, in their particular locality or area or region. And yet all these people with all these different aspects are working together towards something that's far bigger than just what an I can accomplish. It really is about we. And even in the vision piece, there's always, you know, people often have an overall vision. My vision was spirituality at work. Well, I was only one of the many hundreds, thousands of pioneers who really brought that all together. Or the environmental field, if you think about in the 50s, early 60s, there really wasn't very much environmental consciousness. And that was when I started working in that particular area. And it was by having lots of people coming together that the things that we now have that we think of commonplace, like recycling, for example, were even put into place on a very practical level.
There's a nice sense that the mission we may be on, we've got a lot of company in that. Because it feels to me that our culture is so good at separating and isolating us. And I would expect that for most people, knowing you're not alone in this concern or this interest or this passion, it's reinforcing. You get stronger. You get to do some, you know, you get to play together sometimes. Yeah?
Absolutely. We all want community.
Yeah.
We all want community. We're all seeking community. And so because, especially when areas are being pioneered, it can feel like you're a lone warrior out there, you know. I mean, whether it was in the 50s and 60s with the environmental movement, or, you know, we can talk about any decade, any era where something is coming up. When you're the pioneer, you can feel really lonely. So it's very important to have the company, the exchange of ideas, really the exchange of consciousness, and the support. You know, we need that support. And right now, the challenges on our planet are so huge that it's going to take people to work together cooperatively and in harmony, you know, to be able to accomplish what we need to on this planet.
We're not going to tackle all of that in this, but I think the heartening thing I want you to let folks know is that there are tools increasingly to help people work together harmoniously. I see that as a challenge in our very individuated Western culture for how do people get along, what do you do with conflict, what do you do with emotion. So give us a sentence or two, and then I want to get to the children.
Sure. Well, I think the really important thing is that we acknowledge that we have conflict, for example. And in the Inspired Organization, Spirituality and Energy at Work, I actually go through helping individuals find their mission, teams, because we're working together now. You know, when people come together and they're in their purpose and they know their vision, they know their values, they know their mission, that's a very powerful place to come from, because each person knows their piece of it. Yes. And so you can work together cooperatively. When there are conflicts, I talk about conscious co-creators agreements, which isn't my idea, but came from Carolyn Anderson and Barbara Marx Hubbard. And so it's really important that when people work together that they have agreements about how they're going to work together. We're not going to gossip. We identify those areas that are energy draining, both from individuals and from teams and organizations. We're not going to gossip when we have conflict. Here's how we're going to deal with it. We will work it out with the other person, and sometimes we'll agree to disagree. And if there still continues to be conflict, then there are often volunteers in your organization who can help facilitate a process between two individuals. So again, it doesn't mean that you can't disagree with each other, It just means that you come back into some sort of resonance with each other and move forward from that place.
Boy, that's something that strikes me ought to be part of everyone's schooling, everyone's learning, is how to do that. We are so impoverished in terms of emotional and awareness in terms of one another's relationships. And that's going to be a whole other show at some point.
Right.
Part of what's close to your heart right now is working with young people. Tell us about this.
Well, this is I feel the most exciting work. It's dear to my heart, and I've been working with children with spiritual wisdom, including psychic, intuitive, and healing abilities, since about 2001, and finding out that they have amazing gifts of consciousness, I'll call that. We would have thought many years ago that this was only happening in science fiction or in a book like Harry Potter, but actually it's happening with children so that they can read books and magazines and newspapers blindfolded, without their eyes, and the book can be in another place in the room. So it really is about the multidimensional ways of perceiving, of sensing, and of learning. And in fact, it's why there are so many, children's brains are functioning differently now. So often we identify these children as having brain disorders or learning disorders, ADD, ADHD. If you look, it's an epidemic level of all of these different brain diagnoses. But in fact, it's not a simple thing to say the why. But one of the missing pieces is that we're not acknowledging children's spirituality and children's spiritual wisdom and psychic gifts. And when somebody's soul is not acknowledged and not embraced and not recognized, and when your gifts are not recognized, then often as a child, you have no other choice but you just act out. You behave in challenging ways. And you're really signaling that you want some kind of recognition or some kind of help. And children don't necessarily know what that is.
Right.
And teens may not necessarily know what that is, because when you are so sensitive, and that's really what it is, we need children who are sensitive to their environment, because if we as adults had been as sensitive as they are, we would not be destroying our planet, because we would have the empathic sensitivity for what's going on with Mother Earth and what's going on with other people and what's going on with the animals on this planet. And so they're this really hopeful, inspiring, exciting generation and generations to come that in fact are here to ground very special gifts. And we aren't going to necessarily, again, because anyone who's a pioneer as they are, they won't fit into their schools. Sometimes they don't fit into their families, and they feel that, or their communities. And so it's really actually important that we expand our consciousness, because we all have these gifts that they have. But many of us have just forgotten because they were not acknowledged in us. There's no place to go to really develop them as a child. It's because
our culture doesn't have that
we don't
kind
have
of
it.
thing. We don't have vision quests or
No,
elders that
exactly.
say, yes, this is, you are a seer, or whatever it is.
Exactly. You're an oracle, you're a prophet. You can see things clairvoyantly, you can hear things clairaudiently. Please bring your gifts to our tribe, to our family, so that we all benefit from your gifts. And so it just is the other part, because we've lived in such a material world, we have lost that acknowledgement, the focus, the development, because there has to be educational development, and certainly healing over the last 2 decades is burgeoning, the interest in spirituality. And so this is really the time for them to be recognized and bring their knowledge about the cosmos, about the universe. There's a really interesting video on YouTube. A little 9-year-old talks about the universe, how the universe works. So if your viewers Google YouTube or YouTube, a 9-year-old, how the universe works, you'll witness an amazing young man who tells it just as it is, and who knows where he came from with that kind of knowledge.
He just came on through.
Yeah.
In our last 2 minutes, do you want to give us a story from one of these, or a last minute thought?
Well, because one of my passions are the children, I would love to give your viewers some information about where they can get some free information,
Good.
which is on my website, www.divinelyinspiredleaders.com/children. And so there's some free audio for them, and then they'll be able to get some videos, because I think it's both a real problem with children right now, because adults don't necessarily know how to deal with it or recognize it. There's so many unrecognized children. And there are lots of inspiring and exciting stories. I think from even an environmental perspective, and we'll tie it back into what we talked about earlier in the interview, I'm amazed at how many children who come to this planet already know their purpose. And I would call that they have purpose, they have dreams and visions of what they want to do on this planet. And I've met extraordinary children and youth who say, my job is to invent environmental technologies that will clean up the earth. And actually, I know that they already exist. Yeah.
That's got to be tremendously inspiring to you.
It is. It gives me the hope and the inspiration, and I want to share that with other people, because if we do really look in very practical ways at what's going on on our planet, every major ecosystem is declining. Mm-hmm. The animals have declined 90%. We look at all the population. As a scientist, if I look at that, I would say I don't really have a lot of hope for the planet, but I do have hope because of the children, and because I know that consciousness and spirit lives on and goes on, and that's really what's important. So it's a wonderful thing. It makes me happy and joyful, and I'm so glad that it's my job to work with them.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to have, for me particularly, to have the sense of the next generations being more aware, being tuned, and parents and teachers learning how to encourage that. Thank you for your pioneering work, continued pioneering work in this area.
Well, thank you for this show, and for you and Robin to be here on Bowen Island, and for us to connect in this beautiful way. And to all your viewers, I think that you're just doing wonderful work.
Keep an eye on those children around you. Let's take a look at Ellen's website, and I hope you are finding your vision, your purpose, your mission. You're watching Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson, my guest Ellen Hayakawa. Join us next time.